Now, whether you think visual novels are works of art that offer unparalleled character development and story arc, or you just see them as hentai-filled smut, there's been a debate amongst both the gaming and visual novel community on whether or not if they can be considered video games. Now, in the very definition of a visual novel, it says that they are an interactive game featuring mostly static graphics, but visual novels lack basic gameplay, or you could say that they take a minimalist approach to gameplay. They are a novel, a book, almost all of them being a choose-your-own-adventure book, and the ability to choose is the core, and most of the time only, game mechanic. If someone was asking for a video game with a good story, would you recommend a visual novel? What does a visual novel have to offer someone in search of a video game besides a story? And if the player isn't interested in the story, then there's nothing else to fall back on, because then you're just mindlessly clicking at text boxes, and that's hardly a gaming experience. But what if the story was interesting? Is it considered a game then? What if the visual novel was visually stunning and gave you multiple choices very often, such as to kill characters in the story that shape the outcome? Is that visual novel more of a video game than a visual novel with only one choice in the entire playthrough? How about the episodic Telltale games that have you walk around and occasionally attack something, but are mostly story-driven? Can those be considered visual novels, or are those exclusively considered video games because they aren't mostly static images? Well, if we're on the topic of what makes a game and what makes a visual novel, let's talk about text-based adventure games. In them, we find mostly static images with a minimalist style of gameplay, where sometimes it's actually a linear story that you can't affect the outcome of. So are text-based adventure games closer to actual video games, or are they closer to visual novels? Where do you draw the line in between video game and visual novel, if you feel a line is worth drawing at all? Is it critical acclaim? In 2010, Digital: A True Love Story came out. It was praised by critics and ended up being on the Indie Game of the Year lists, so surely this would be considered a game. But what about The Devil on G-String, an adult visual novel that also gained critical praise and became the second most pre-ordered visual novel for a month in Japan? So is The Devil on G-String a video game? Does it have to do about where the visual novel was made? Can visual novels only come from Asia, whereas the same type of content made in America or Europe would be considered a video game instead? Now, me personally, I feel that even though visual novels are in fact novels, just virtual books, I also have to consider them a video game, although it's hard to classify them as games, because there's such a clear distinction between an actual form of media meant to be played, between a visual novel, which is meant to be read. So if I was to draw a line in the sand, a visual novel would have to have no gameplay elements other than dialogue choice. So games like To the Moon or the Telltale games would not be considered visual novels, even though they are heavily story-driven. But I want to hear your opinion. Where do you think the line is drawn between visual novel and video game? Or do you think a visual novel is a video game no matter what? If you want to answer any of the questions that I asked in this video, please feel free to comment. And don't forget about the Daily Quest Discord. The invite is in the video description. Also, if you enjoy me opening up the discussion on various topics such as this one, please click that subscribe button. I think you should do it, based solely on the fact that I made an entire video without fucking swearing a single time besides now. I'm fucking breaking my balls trying to act like a civilized adult for you people, when it doesn't even fucking matter in the end. So, please, subscribe, Discord, like, comment, do whatever the fuck you gotta do. I'm out.